Today we're gonna do a full tutorial on how to achieve the perfect textured lash set for each individual client. So I have my model here today. I'm gonna walk you through my assessment for her, why I'm choosing to do what style of lash for our textured look in order to complement her eye shape, and her lifestyle. So we're gonna run through how to make closed fans, how many lashes we should grab while making these closed fans. We're gonna talk about natural spikes versus dramatic spikes, what the difference of each are. We're gonna talk about working eye to eye. Before and afters, of course, we're gonna throw some before and afters in there. We're also gonna talk about how and when to apply the spikes and how we still have to create a perfect shape for the lashes that live underneath the spikes. We're also gonna run through some layering, some assessment of the eyes, all sorts of other volume tips and tricks, so you're not gonna wanna miss out on those. Really pay attention to this video. You may wanna take some notes because this video is going to be jam-packed with volume information that's very valuable, so you won't wanna miss out on anything. Go ahead, rewatch this video as many times as you need, and you are going to love creating this style. It's super popular right now, and clients are asking for it all the time. So it's really nice to have this technique in your back pocket and get comfortable with the process of it. Okay, so let's start with our assessment. You'll notice that I have 2 dots on her eyes already, from here to here and here to here. My reason for putting dots on her eyes is because I always do my assessments with the client's eyes open. So I do this because the eyes look very different because eyes look very different when they're open versus when they're closed. And our clients are gonna see their lashes with their eyes open. So it's really important that we style those lashes with their eyes open. So that's where these dots are coming from. Now I'm gonna walk you through why I chose to put the dots here, and we're gonna run through why this set will suit Rochelle. So with her eyes open, first of all, she has beautiful natural lashes, and there's also a really nice lift to them already. So we're not gonna worry about using like a decurl or anything. She already has lift on all points of her eye, especially this area right here. You can see that they're very lifted. So we wanna stick with less of a curl in this area and more of a curl just over here, because the eyes really do tilt a little bit down here. So we wanna steer clear of longer lengths on those outer corners. So what we're gonna do is from this point right here where her pupil sits, we're gonna put our longest length from here to here. This is gonna give a little bit of a lift in these areas, bring the eye up a little bit, because right here, from this point to this point, she has the most space between her eyes. And you can see here, we wanna cover just this line right here and bring that eye open in this area. So we're kind of elongating. We're gonna work with a little bit of direction as well, just to push those a little bit out in these areas, offering lift, and then we're gonna jump right back down in length on that last little bit of her eye so that we don't droop the eye, because that's not gonna do her any favors. We wanna be very careful always, actually, in this area. This is pretty much our biggest trouble area on 99.9% of our clients. Not many people will have that upturned eye. Most people's eye comes down on a little bit of a slant, and then if we put longer lashes on, we're gonna really droop that. So we're gonna be working with an upward direction on those outer corners and in shorter lengths. And by doing this style, we're also gonna complement the arch of her eyebrow, which is gonna look lovely. And then why are we doing shorter lengths? Because we don't want super long lengths. If we put longer lengths in here, it's gonna hit against her eyebrow because she has so much lift in that area already. And if we do super long lengths here, we don't wanna fill in too much of that eyebrow, and we don't wanna make her eyes the lashes actually droop down into her eye, making her eye appear a little bit smaller. So we wanna open that up, but just ever so slightly. And Rochelle also says she really likes dense lashes. So underneath the spikes, we're gonna do a Russian volume open eye map. It's like a mix of an open eye and a squirrel, actually. It's really nice to mix styles together. Again, every client needs something unique, so you wanna really just work with what your client has and offer them something unique to suit their physical attributes. So underneath, we're gonna do a Russian volume set. We're gonna work with layers. So we're gonna put our longest length on that bottom layer, and then 1 millimeter shorter in the middle and 1 millimeter shorter than the middle on the top layer. And that's gonna give that really nice dense line, and then with the little spikes coming out through. So when I'm working with layers, I'm gonna do that top layer first, meaning the layer closest to me while I'm working. And then I'm gonna work on the bottom layer, and then I'll go ahead and work on the middle layer afterwards. This is what gives us that really nice Russian look, because we get the darkness from the shorter lashes sitting underneath the longer lashes on the bottom. And my longest length today is gonna be a 12 millimeter. It's gonna look beautiful on her. 12 millimeter just in between these two dots right here. And again, that's only gonna be on my bottom layer, and on the top layer, it's gonna be a 10 millimeter. And then our spikes are gonna be 4 millimeters longer than the middle layer. So it's gonna be 3 millimeters longer than that top layer. So for my spikes, I'm gonna go ahead and do 3 millimeters longer than the lashes that I'm using on that top layer. So I'm using a 10 millimeter for this set. I'm gonna go ahead and use a 13 millimeter in this section here for my spikes, and then I'm gonna drop back down accordingly. So I'm gonna show you my mapping shortly. I'm just gonna put on my iPads, but quickly, I'm sitting behind Rochelle right now, and I'm just noticing that there's a little bit of mascara left in her lashes. Honestly, it's really hard for clients to know if there's mascara still stuck in their lashes. So in order to get rid of that, I'm just gonna give her a quick lash bath and a prime before we start. Otherwise, we're gonna be attaching the extensions to mascara instead of the natural lash, which is not gonna help us with retention. So we're gonna go ahead and do that before we begin. Finished my mapping, and you can see it looks a little bit crazy, but it totally makes sense to me, and however it makes sense to you, you can draw your mapping. Honestly, your mapping is a guide for you to follow, so you need to understand it, so make it unique and something that you like following. So you can see all my little lines here that I have that section off my mapping. So I'm gonna follow these little lines and create my spikes by working with these lines. So I'm gonna put spikes on all these little lines, and then you see where this 10, 11, and 12 is, right in the middle here. I'm gonna use that as a line as well. And we're gonna put some spikes in those areas. And you can see on the outers, like you may be thinking, why do I only have one number out here and two here? Reason being is because usually we only have one layer on that very outer corner, and then maybe we'll be lucky if we get two here. So if we only have a couple layers that we're working with, just adjust your mapping accordingly, and you can always switch it up while you're working. The main thing is, for the style that I'm going for that Russian volume, perfect line look underneath the spikes, I just wanna make sure that it flows very nicely. So we never wanna jump lengths throughout unless we're working with those spikes, only for the spikes. And then my next step is I'm gonna go ahead and first apply my spikes, and then I'm gonna work on the rest of my set. So before we dive in, I just wanna quickly show you how I've set up my palette. I've got my crystal glue holder here. I love this when I'm working with handmade volume because I can really tap my base off, which allows the base to come together in a really nice point. I'll show you how to do that later. But I really like having the crystal glue holder just to have the spare one, so I can just go ahead and put a new dot on, or I can use the little grooves in the actual tray to wipe that base on. I find that really helpful. And then when I'm setting up my lashes, you'll see I have my 0.03s. This is what I'm gonna use for my spikes. I always work with 0.03 or 0.05 for my spikes, ideally 0.03. And then I'm gonna be working with 0.10 today for my volume. And I could do anything between a 2D and a 5D, depending on the strength of her natural lash. And one other note is, see how they're all spaced out a little bit? This is really helpful when working with volume fans because you have that white to contrast while you're making your fans. When I put my strips too close together, I simply can't see what's happening when I'm fanning the lashes out when I'm working from the strip. So I do find having that little bit of space helps a lot. And then you'll notice, see how I've pulled off a few lashes on the outers of each strip. That's so I have an area to build my fans, because if I don't have any, then there's no sticky strip for me to lay the base on and then fan it out. And then last but not least, my tools. I always work with my Grippo Slim Boot. I find this tweezer is the best, but because I'm using so much tension on it all the time, I do find I have to switch up my tweezers every 2 to 3 months. You may find the same depending on how often you lash. And again, if you drop it, they're probably gonna get destroyed. And then I really like working with Sunset Ultra Tweezer. I like the curvature of it. I find it really nice for isolating, and it has a very nice fine point tip, which helps me really maneuver around any lashes that get in my way while isolating. Let's put our spikes on.